Hey everyone, Monkey Chaos here. This is a quick intro to every character currently in Wild Rift. Something to give you a base familiarity so you're not walking into a lane going, what is this guy? Oh, I'm dead. In the interest of making this fast, let's just jump right into it. Ahri's a mage assassin. Her passive Essence Theft stacks on spell hit. After 3 stacks, her next ability heals. Orb of Deception boomerangs an orb for magic damage and true damage on return. Foxfire seeks nearby foes doing magic damage and gives a boost to movement speed. Charm blows a kiss for magic damage and charms the enemy to walk towards Ahri and take additional damage from Ahri's abilities. Her ult Spirit Rush dashes dealing magic damage and can be cast 3 times within 10 seconds. Akali is an assassin. Her passive Assassin's Mark creates a ring whenever she does ability damage. Crossing the ring empowers her next attack, giving it additional range, damage, and restores energy. 5-point strike throws 5 kunais, doing magic damage. Enemies struck at max range are slowed by 50%. Twilight Shroud creates a smoke cloud that Akali is invisible within and gains movement speed and restores energy. Shuriken Flip. Akali flips backwards and throws a shuriken for damage, marking the target. Recasting dashes to the marked target, dealing magic damage. Her ult, Perfect Execution, on first cast dashes to the enemy doing physical damage. 2.5 seconds later, she can cast again to do magic damage. Alistair is a tank support. His passive Triumphant Roar charges on stun or displacement of enemies and does an AoE heal on charge. Pulverize does magic damage and knocks up enemies. Headbutt dashes towards an enemy, dealing magic damage and knockback. Trample does AoE magic damage around Alistair for 5 seconds. If he hits an enemy 5 times, his next attack is empowered to do bonus magic damage and stun. His ult, Unbreakable Will, removes CC and he gains 55% damage reduction. Amumu is a tank. His passive Cursed Touch causes targets he attacks to take 10% additional true damage from magic attacks. Bandage Toss launches a bandage, doing magic damage, stuns, and pulls Amumu towards the target. Despair is a toggle. He cries doing AoE damage around him. The damage is a percentage of the target's max HP. Tantrum reduces physical damage Amumu takes and deals 90 damage around him, slowing enemies. His ult, Curse of the Sad Mummy, does magic damage and an AoE stun. Annie's a mage support. Her passive Pyromania triggers after casting 4 abilities. Her next ability will stun. Disintegrate shoots a fireball for magic damage. Killing refunds the mana and half the cooldown. Incinerate does a cone of magic damage. Molten Shield can be cast on herself or allies, shielding from damage and doing damage to attackers. Her ult, summons Tibbers, doing AoE damage at the point of impact and burn damage around Tibbers, and Tibbers may also attack. Ash is a marksman / support. Her passive Frost Shot makes it so that all her attacks and abilities slow. Her crits do not do bonus damage, instead they increase the slow. Ranger's Focus builds up stacks while attacking, and she can spend those stacks to increase her attack speed and damage. Volley shoots a cone of 5 arrows. Hawkshot fires a hawk that reveals along its path and explodes to reveal an area for 5 seconds. Her ult, Enchanted Crystal Arrow, can travel across the map, doing damage and a small AoE at impact. The further the arrow travels, the longer the stun. You can also recast to steer the arrow slightly. Aurelian's Soul is a mage. His passive Center of the Universe causes stars to circle around him, doing magic damage to those they impact. Star Surge fires a star that expands while remaining close to Aurelian, doing magic damage and stunning based on the time traveled. Celestial Expansion causes the stars that circle Aurelian's Soul to do more damage, and when activated, causes them to orbit faster and wider, doing more damage, and also gives him a slight movement speed buff. Comet of Legends passive, he gradually gains move speed while moving in the same direction. You can activate it to fly and travel over walls and obstacles. Taking damage stops flight. His ult, Voice of Light, does magic damage, knockback, and a slow. Blitzcrank is a tank support. His passive Mana Barrier, upon falling below 35% health, he gains a shield equal to 30% mana. Rocket Grab fires a hand that does damage and pulls the target towards Blitzcrank. Overdrive increases movement speed and attack speed, causes a slow at the end of the effect. Power Fist causes his next attack to crit and knock up. His ult, Static Field, while off cooldown, when he attacks an enemy, he marks them and they take shock damage. When he activates it, it does AoE magic damage and silences. Braum is a support tank. His passive Concussive Blows stacks on attack. Once a target has 1 stack, allied attacks also add stacks. On 4 stacks, the enemy is stunned and takes magic damage. Winter's Bite launches ice that does magic damage in a slow. Stand Behind Me, Braum leaps to an ally and they both gain armor and magic resist. Unbreakable is a shield that intercepts projectiles and negates the first instance of damage and then reduces damage after that. He's also hasted while the shield is up. His ult, Glacial Fissure, slams the ground, opening a fissure, doing magic damage, knock up, and slows enemies on the fissure. Camille is a fighter. Her passive Adaptive Defense gives her a shield when she attacks enemies that absorbs damage. Precision Protocol empowers her next attack to deal bonus physical damage and grants her movement speed. It can be recast within 3.5 seconds, and if the second cast is after 1.5 seconds, the second attack does true damage. Tactical Sweep is a cone-shaped blast doing physical damage. Enemies hit on the outer half of the cone are slowed and take bonus damage that's a percent of their max HP, and Camille is healed for that much. Hookshot pulls Camille towards terrain, and then on the second cast, she dashes from that point, doing damage, and if hitting a champ or large monster, does a stun and gives her an attack speed buff. Her ult, the Hextech Ultimatum, leaps doing magic damage and a percent of the target's current HP, knocks away other enemies, and creates an inescapable zone. Corki is a marksman. His passive Hextech Munitions causes attacks to do bonus physical and magic damage, and after 4 minutes, a package shows up that if he picks it up at base, gives him bonus out of combat movement and empowers his Valkyrie ability. Phosphorus Bomb does AoE magic damage and grants vision of an area. Valkyrie dashes forward, leaving a flaming trail that deals magic damage per second. If it's empowered by the package, enemies are knocked aside and the zone deals bonus magic damage and slows. Gatling Gun does physical and magic damage per second and also shreds armor and magic resist. His ult, Missile Barrage, allows Corki to fire a missile at long range. Every 3rd missile is a big one that does double damage. Darius is a fighter. His passive Hemorrhage gives his attacks a bleed over 5 seconds. Getting 5 stacks of Hemorrhage grants Noxian Might, which increases his attack damage and applies full stacks of Hemorrhage on hit. Decimate swings in a circle, doing damage and applying Hemorrhage. damage. Enemies hit on the outside of the circle take additional damage and heal Darius. Crippling Strike empowers Darius' next attack to do bonus damage and a 90% slow for 1 second. Apprehend pulls enemies in front and causes a slow. His ult, Noxian Guillotine, does true damage, does additional damage per hemorrhage stack, and refreshes the cooldown if it kills the target. Diana is a fighter. Her passive, Moonsilver Blade, every third attack deals bonus magic damage in an area. Crescent Strike fires an arcing bolt that does magic damage, applies Moonlight, and reveals targets for 3 seconds. Pale Cascade causes 3 spheres to orbit Diana, doing magic damage and giving her a shield. If all 3 orbs detonate, she gets a bigger shield. Lunar Rush dashes, doing magic damage and removing Moonlight, increasing attack speed for the next 3 attacks. If any Moonlight was removed, the cooldown is reduced to 0.5 seconds. Her ult, Moonfall, can be charged. While charging, enemies are slowed. After casting, they take magic damage based on how long it was charged, and are pulled towards the center. Dr. Mundo is a fighter tank. His passive Adrenaline Rush, he regenerates 1% of missing HP per second. Infective Cleaver does a percent of the target's current HP as magic damage and causes a slow. Burning Agony is a toggle that does fire damage to enemies near Dr. Mundo and reduces the duration of disables. Masochism increases his magic resist when taking magic damage and can also be activated to gain bonus attack damage for 5 seconds based on missing health. His ult, Sadism, drastically increases his HP regen and gives him a movement speed buff. Draven is a marksman. His passive, League of Draven, gives him a stack of adoration anytime he kills an enemy or catches an axe. Killing a champion grants him 50 gold per 4 stacks of adoration. He loses half of those stacks on death. Spinning Axe boosts the damage of his next attack and causes the axe to bounce off and can be caught, regaining Spinning Axe. Blood Rush gives him a short attack and move speed buff. Catching a Spinning Axe refreshes the cooldown. Stand Aside throws an axe doing damage and knocking aside enemies hit, slowing them. Whirling Death throws 2 massive axes that return to Draven on either hitting the edge of the map, hitting a champion, or reactivating, doing damage both ways. Evelynn is an assassin. Her passive Demon Shade regens her health below a certain point, and after level 5 gives her perma camo that activates after 4 seconds of not attacking or casting. Hate Spike shoots out 2 lines of spikes that do magic damage to all enemies struck and can be recast within 4 seconds. Allure curses the target. Evelynn's next hit on the target will do a slow. If the curse lasts for 2.5 seconds, the next hit will charm instead. Whiplash does magic damage, and if Evelynn is in Demon Shade, it does additional damage and pulls Evelynn towards the target. Her ult, Last Caress, causes her to go untargetable, doing damage in front of her, bonus damage to enemies below 35% HP, and then warps her backwards. Ezreal is a marksman/mage. His passive Rising Spell Force gives him additional attack speed every time he lands an ability, stacking up to 4 times. Mystic Shot fires a bolt. Hitting a target reduces other cooldowns by 1.5 seconds. Essence Flux sticks to a target. Hitting with an attack or ability does magic damage and refunds mana. Arcane Shift blinks to a targeted area and does a bolt of damage to a nearby enemy. True Shot Barrage fires an energy wave that travels across the map, doing magic damage to anything it hits. Fiora is a fighter assassin. Her passive Duelist Dance highlights a direction around an enemy champ. If she hits from that direction, she does bonus true damage, heals herself, and gains a movement speed buff. Lunge lunges and stabs for physical damage, hitting refund 60% of the cooldown. Riposte parries all damage and debuffs for a very short time, then stabs, dealing magic damage, slows, and does a stun if an immobilize was parried. Blade Work empowers her next 2 attacks with additional attack speed. The first attack applies a slow but can't crit. The second attack always crits. Her ultimate, Grand Challenge, reveals all 4 vitals for 8 seconds, gives her a movement speed buff, and if she hits all 4 vitals or the target dies, leaves an AoE heal on the ground for her and her teammates. Fizz is an assassin mage. His passive Seastone Trident causes his attacks to do additional magic damage over time. Urchin Strike dashes through the target, doing damage and on-hit effects. Rending Wave empowers his next attack to do bonus magic damage. Attacks in the next 5 seconds also do a smaller amount of magic damage. Kills refund this cooldown. With Playful Trickster, he vaults to the target, becoming untargetable. Then he hops down, doing magic damage and a slow. His ult, Chum the Waters, launches a fish that attaches to the first champ it hits, revealing them, and a shark knocks them up, dealing magic damage and slowing them. Galio is a tank. His passive Colossal Smash empowers his next attack every few seconds to do bonus magic damage and AoE. Winds of War fires 2 Wind Blasts that do magic damage and converge to form a tornado that deals a percent of the target's max HP over 1.5 seconds. Shield of Duran's passive, he periodically gains a shield that absorbs magic damage when he takes magic damage. Hold the ability to enter defensive stance, releasing to do magic damage and taunting nearby enemies. Justice Punch dashes forward and does damage and knockup. Hero's Entrance grants shield to allies at the target. After a delay, he lands, doing magic damage and knockup. There has to be an ally there for him to target. Garen is a fighter/tank. His passive Perseverance gives him a 1.2% HP per second heal when he's not hit for 5 seconds. Decisive Strike breaks slows, gives him a burst of speed, and empowers his next attack to do bonus physical damage and silence. Courage reduces damage taken for a few seconds and gains bonus resistance to crowd control. Judgment, Garen spins with his sword. Enemies on the edge of the circle are crit for 125% damage. His ult, Demacian Judgment, does true damage based on the target's missing HP. Nearby enemies take 50% of the damage. Gragas is a tank/mage. His passive Happy Hour causes him to restore HP on casting abilities periodically. Barrel Roll rolls a barrel that explodes for magic damage and a slow. Drunken Rage gives him damage reduction and empowers his next attack to do bonus magic damage and a small AoE. Body Slam charges forward, doing magic damage, knockback, and stun. Cooldown is reduced if he hits an enemy. His ultimate Explosive Cask throws a barrel that explodes, doing magic damage and knocking enemies away from the center. Graves is a marksman fighter. His passive New Destiny. His attacks fire 4 bullets, crits fire 6. Ammo needs to be reloaded. Targets hit by more bullets take more damage. End of the Line fires a shell that does physical damage, then detonates, doing more physical damage. Smokescreen does AoE magic damage and a slow. Enemies in the smoke can't see out of the smoke. Quick Draw dashes forward, giving an armor stack. Attacks on a champion, refresh the armor stack, and reduce cooldown. His ult, Collateral Damage, fires an explosive shell that does physical damage, and then either on hit or at the end of its range, shoots in a cone, doing more physical damage. Jaina is a support mage. Her passive Tailwind gives her a movement speed bonus. Allied champs that move towards her gain that movement speed bonus. Howling Gale charges a whirlwind. On recast or being fully charged, launches forward, doing magic damage and knockup. Zephyr gives her an additional movement speed buff and magic damage buff on her attacks. When activated, does magic damage and a slow. Eye of the Storm grants a shield that absorbs damage and grants attack damage while up. Her ultimate Monsoon knocks back all surrounding enemies and heals allies for 3 seconds. Jarvan IV is a tank/fighter. His passive Martial cadence. His first attack against an enemy deals bonus damage based on current HP. Dragon Strike extends his lance, dealing physical damage and reducing the target's armor. If it comes in contact with a Demacian standard, it will pull Draven and knock up. Golden Aegis slows surrounding enemies and grants a shield. The more enemies around him, the bigger the shield. Demacian standard gives him a passive attack speed boost. He can throw the standard to do magic damage and give allies around it an attack speed boost. His ultimate Cataclysm leaps to an enemy doing physical damage and creates a crater to trap them in. Jax is a fighter. His passive Relentless Assault gives him stacks of attack speed boost when he attacks, up to 8 stacks total. Leap Strike, he leaps to a target doing physical damage if it's an enemy. Empower, he empowers his next attack to do bonus magic damage. Counter Strike, he dodges all incoming attacks for 2 seconds, then stuns for 1 second and does physical damage AoE, more damage based on how many attacks he dodged. His ultimate Grandmaster Might, the passive every 3rd consecutive attack deals bonus magic damage, and he can activate it to gain bonus armor and magic resist. Jhin is a marksman slash mage. His passive Whisper causes his attacks to be at a fixed fire rate. Any attack speed he gets converted into damage. He has 4 shots, then he has to reload. On the 4th shot, it always crits and gives him a movement speed buff. Dancing Grenade throws a grenade that does physical damage and then bounces to a target it hasn't hit. It can bounce up to 4 times, doing increased damage with each bounce. Deadly Flourish is a long-range shot that pierces through enemies and stops on the first champion hit. It's a target that was recently hit by Jhin. They are rooted and he gains movement speed. Captive Audience places a Lotus Trap that, if triggered, reveals the enemy, slows them, and does magic damage. When Jhin kills an enemy, a Lotus Trap will spawn and explode where the enemy was killed. His ultimate Curtain Call fires 4 super shots of extreme range and a cone. Shots slow by 80% and do increased damage based on missing HP. The last 4 shots crits for 200% damage. Jinx is a marksman. Her passive Get Excited massively increases her movement speed and attack speed whenever she helps kill a champion, epic monster, or a structure. Switcheroo switches between her rocket launcher that fires at long range and does an AoE splash damage but uses mana, and her minigun that grants stacks of attack speed buff. Zap is a long range shock blast that does physical damage, grants vision, and slows the target. Flame Chompers throws down 3 traps that do damage and root anyone that steps on them. Her ultimate, Super Mega Death Rocket, gains more damage as it crosses the map. It explodes on the first enemy champion it hits, doing bonus damage based on missing HP to it and all targets around it. Kai'Sa is a marksman slash assassin. Her passive Second Skin causes her abilities to evolve at certain stat points. Her second passive, Caustic Wounds, Kai'Sa's attacks and allies immobile effects stack plasma that does bonus magic damage on targets. Cathian Rain, 6 missiles evenly split among enemies do physical damage. Additional hits on the same enemy do 25% damage. At 70 attack, it shoots 12 missiles instead. Void Seeker fires a long range blast that does magic damage, applies 2 stacks of plasma and reveals the enemy. At 80 ability power, it applies 3 stacks and refunds 70% of the cooldown when it hits a champ. Supercharge, she charges forward with greater movement speed, then gains greater attack speed. At 65% attack speed, she's invisible during the charge up. Her ult, Killer Instinct, is a long range dash on an enemy marked with plasma and gives her a shield. Katarina is assassin slash mage. Her passive Veracity, takedowns reduce her cooldowns by 15 seconds, and whenever she picks up a dagger, she slashes nearby enemies for magic damage. Bouncing Blade throws a dagger that does magic damage to the target and 2 nearby enemies, and then sticks on the ground. Preparation tosses a dagger in there and gives her a movement speed buff. Shun Po blinks to a dagger or a target doing magic damage. Picking up a dagger greatly reduces the cooldown. Her ultimate, Death Lotus, she rapidly throws blades at the 3 nearest enemy champs, doing magic damage and grievous wounds. Kennen is a mage slash marksman. His passive, Mark of the Storm, abilities apply a stack for 6 seconds. On 3 stacks, an enemy is stunned and can regain some energy. Thundering Shuriken, he throws a shuriken doing magic damage. Electrical Surge is passive. Every 5th attack deals bonus magic damage and applies Mark of the Storm. On activating, shock nearby enemies with Mark of the Storm for magic damage. Lightning Rush, he transforms into a ball of electricity, gaining movement speed and doing magic damage to enemies he passes through, then gains an attack speed buff on exiting. His ultimate, Slicing Maelstrom, does damage every half a second for 3 seconds in an AoE. Each bolt on the same target deals 10% increased damage, and it also applies stacks of Mark of the Storm. Lee Sin is a fighter slash assassin. His passive Flurry, his abilities grant him 50% attack speed bonus for 2 attacks, and those attacks restore bonus energy. Sonic Wave fires a wave that deals physical damage and reveals an enemy, allowing him to follow up with Resonating Strike, which dashes to the enemy, does damage based on missing HP. Safeguard dashes to a location. If an enemy is nearby, it gives him a shield and enables Iron Will, powering his next attack to do bonus magic damage and provide physical and magic vamp. Tempest smashes the ground for magic damage and revealing enemies. Hitting an enemy enables Cripple, which slows enemies hit by Tempest. His ultimate, Dragon's Rage, kicks an enemy doing physical damage and knockback. Any enemies hit by the kicked champion take additional damage based on the kicked champion's HP and are knocked up. Leona is a support slash tank. Her passive is Sunlight. Her abilities apply sunlight that allied champions can consume by attacking, doing bonus magic damage. Shield of Daybreak empowers her next attack to stun and do bonus magic damage. Eclipse gives her bonus armor and magic resist for 3 seconds, then does an AoE blast. If an enemy is hit by the blast, she gets the armor and magic resist for an additional 3 seconds. Zenith Blade does magic damage in a line, roots the last champ hit, and dashes towards them. Her ultimate, Solar Flare, calls down a beam of light which does magic damage in a slow. Enemies at the center are stunned instead of slowed. Lulu's a support slash mage. Her passive, Pix Fairy Companion. Pix fires 3 bolts, doing magic damage whenever Lulu attacks. Pix can also be attached to other allies or enemies. Glitterlance, Lulu and Pix both fire piercing bolts, doing magic damage in a slow. Whimsy, Pix creates a ring attaching to the first champ that enters. If it's an ally, they gain movement speed and attack speed. If it's an enemy, they're polymorph for 1 second. Hell Pix, if attached to an ally, gives them a shield. If attached to an enemy, does damage and provides vision of that enemy. Her ult, Wild Growth, can be cast on herself or an allied champ, knocking up all close by enemies, granting a large health boost, and an aura that slows. Lux is a mage slash support. Her passive, Illumination, damaging abilities apply Illumination. Her next attack on a target with Illumination deals bonus magic damage. Light Binding fires a ball of light that roots 2 enemies and deals magic damage. Prismatic Barrier throws a wand that applies a damage shield on allied champs as it passes through them and a greater shield on the way back. Lucent Singularity creates a zone of light that slows enemies and does damage on detonation. Final Spark fires a beam of light at a very long range that does magic damage. Malphite is a tank. His passive Granite Shield provides a shield after not taking damage for 8 seconds. Seismic Shard, he deals magic damage, slows the target, and increases his own movement speed. Thunderclap passively gives him armor. Activating it empowers his next attack to do bonus damage and causes his next few attacks to damage an a cone. Ground Slam slams the ground doing AoE damage and reduces enemy attack speed. Unstoppable Force charges an area doing AoE damage and knockout. Master Yi is an assassin fighter. His passive double strike. Every 4th consecutive attack hits twice. Alpha Strike, he becomes untargetable and hits up to 4 enemies for physical damage. Attacking reduces the cooldown by 1 second. Meditate can be channeled, giving him damage reduction and healing. Wuju style passively gives him an AD boost and can be activated to give true damage. His ultimate, Highlander, passively reduces cooldowns for his other abilities when he scores takedowns. He can activate it for a movement speed buff, attack speed buff, become immune to slow, and takedowns extend the duration. Misfortune is a marksman slash mage. Her passive, Love Tap, she does bonus physical damage when hitting a new target. Double Up fires a shot that ricochets behind the first enemy hit, doing physical damage to the first enemy, critting the second enemy. Strut passively increases her movement speed when not taking damage, can be activated to get a bigger movement speed buff. Make It Rain rains down bullets in an AoE, doing magic damage on a slow. Her ultimate, Bullet Time, channels a barrage of bullets, doing 12 waves of physical damage that can crit for 120%. Nami is a support slash mage. Her passive, Surging Tide, when her abilities hit allies, they gain movement speed. Aqua Prism throws a bubble, doing damage and stunning enemies on impact.
Yes, I am a weapon. Tick, tick, away.
Pantheon is a fighter assassin. His passive Mortal Will, after 5 attacks or abilities, his next basic ability is enhanced. Comet Spear, tap to stab forward, refunding 50% of the cooldown, or hold to throw the spear, doing full damage to the first target hit, 50% to each subsequent target. Shield Bolt, dash to an enemy, stunning them and dealing damage. Aegis Assault, block all non-tower damage from a direction and deal damage in a cone. His ultimate, Grand Starfall, throw his spear in a long range across the map, dealing area damage and slow, then crashing down in a line towards the target area, doing magic damage. Rakan is a support slash tank. His passive, Fey Feathers, he periodically gains a shield. Gleaming Quill flings a feather for magic damage, hitting a champ or a monster heals nearby allies. Grand Entrance does a dash and knockout. Battle Dance, he can fly to an allied champion, granting a shield, be recast for a short duration, doubles the shield and reduces the cooldown if it's cast on Xayah. His ultimate, the Quickness, he gains movement speed, and charms and does magic damage to any enemies he touches. Seraphine is a mage slash support. The passive, Stage Presence, every third ability echoes, casting again. Casting abilities also grants notes to nearby allies. Her next basic attack does increased range and damage for each note on an ally. High Note does AoE damage, increased by enemies missing HP. Surround Sound shields nearby allies and grants movement speed. If Seraphine is already shielded, it heals allies. Beat Drop fires a wave that damages and slows. If the enemy is already slowed, they're rooted, and if they're already rooted, they're stunned. Her ultimate, Encore, does damage in a line, charming and slowing enemies, and extends the range if it touches an ally or enemy. Shyvana is a fighter slash tank. Her passive, Fury of the Dragonborn, she does bonus damage to dragons, and killing an elemental dragon permanently empowers abilities in dragon form. Twin Bite strikes twice on the next attack. Dragon form cleaves all units in front. Slaying Mountain Drake adds a slow. Burnout grants a movement speed increase and does AoE fire damage per second. Basic attack extends the duration. Dragon form to AoE is larger. Slaying Cloud Drake increases the movement speed. Flame Breath launches a fireball that damages and marks a target. Hitting a marked target does bonus damage based on the max HP per hit. In dragon form, the fireball explodes on impact, doing AoE damage on the ground. Slaying Infernal Drake changes damage to true damage on marked targets in dragon form. Her ultimate, Dragon's Descent, she transforms into a dragon, gains bonus HP, and flies ahead. Enemies on the path take damage and are knocked to her location. Slaying Ocean Drake grants additional HP in dragon form. Singed is a tank slash mage. His passive, Noxious Slipstream, he gains a burst of movement speed when moving past enemies. Poison Trail, he leaves a trail of poison that damages enemies over time. Mega Adhesive slows enemies and disables movement abilities. Fling damages and flings an enemy behind Singed. If they land in Mega Adhesive, they're rooted. His ultimate, Insanity Potion, increases his ability power, armor, magic resist, move speed, health, and mana regen for 25 seconds. Sona is a support slash mage. Her passive, Power Chord, after 3 spells cast, her next attack does bonus damage and additionally inflicts more damage, damage reduction, or slow depending on which ability Sona last used. Hymn of Valor fires 2 bolts at nearby enemies, creates an aura that grants allies bonus damage on next attack. Area of Perseverance heals Sona and nearby allies, creates an aura that grants temporary shield. Song of Celerity grants nearby allies movement speed and an aura that grants movement speed. Her ultimate, Crescendo, does magic damage and a stun in an area in front of her. Soraka is a support slash mage. Her passive, Salvation, Soraka runs faster towards nearby low health allies. Starcall does magic damage and a slow. If it hits an enemy champ, she heals herself. Astral Infusion, she sacrifices some health to heal an ally champ. Equinox creates a zone that silences silences. When it expires, it roots enemies still inside. Her ult Wish is a map-wide team heal. Teemo is a marksman slash mage. His passive Toxic Shot. His attacks deal bonus magic damage over time. Blinding Dart deals magic damage and blinds targets, making their attacks do no damage for a short time. Move Quick passively gives him a movement speed increase when he's not hit. Activate to roll and double the movement speed boost. Guerrilla Warfare. After a delay, Teemo becomes camouflaged. After exiting camo, he gains an attack speed buff. Ultimate Noxious Trap places invisible mushroom traps that release a poisonous puddle, damaging over time and slowing. Traps last for 2 minutes. Tristana is a marksman. Her passive Draw a Bead increases her range as she levels up. Rapid Fire increases her attack speed for a short time. Rocket Jump jumps to a location, damaging and slowing. Takedowns and fully stacked explosive charge detonations reset cooldown. Explosive charge is passive. Tristana's kills explode, doing magic damage. Activate to place a bomb on a target that explodes after a short duration. Attacks apply stacks that increase damage up to 4 stacks. Her ultimate Buster Shot does damage and a large knockback. Tryndamere is a fighter. His passive Battle Fury. He gains Fury with each attack, crit, and killing blow. Fury increases crit chance and can be consumed with Bloodlust. Bloodlust passive. He gains attack damage based on missing HP. Activate it to consume all Fury to heal per point of Fury. Mocking Shout reduces the attack damage of nearby enemies. Any enemy champs with their back turned also get their movement speed reduced. Spinning Slash is a spinning dash that does damage to enemies in its path. His ultimate Undying Rage makes him unable to die during the duration. Twisted Fate is a mage slash marksman. His passive Loaded Dice. He gains between 2 and 12 gold for every unit killed. Wild Cards throws 3 cards, dealing damage to enemies passed through. Pick a card allows him to pick one of 3 cards. A red card does AoE damage and a slow. Blue card does damage and restores mana. Gold card does damage and a stun. Stack Deck has a passive. Every 4th attack deals bonus attack damage, and on activating gain an attack speed for 3 seconds and rolls loaded dice on each champ hit. His ultimate Destiny reveals all enemy champs and allows him to teleport across the map. Varus is a marksman slash mage. His passive Living Vengeance. On Killer Assist, Varus gains attack speed. Piercing Arrow, a shot that gains attack range and damage the longer he charges it. Blighted Quiver, passive. Basic attacks deal bonus magic damage and apply Blight. Other abilities detonate Blight, dealing magic damage based on max HP. Activate to empower his next Piercing Arrow. Hail of Arrows, AoE damage, slow, and reduce healing. His ultimate Chain of Corruption damages and immobilizes the first target hit, and then spreads the immobilized to other nearby enemies. Vayne is a marksman assassin. Her passive Night Hunter, she gains movement speed when moving towards enemy champs. Tumble, she tumbles and the next attack deals bonus damage. Silver Bolt, every 3rd attack deals bonus true damage based on target's max HP. Activating increases attack speed and heals per hit. Condemn does damage and a knockback. If the knockback hits the target into terrain, it does bonus damage and a stun. Her ultimate Final Hour increases attack damage. She's invisible while tumbling, gets more movement speed from Night Hunter, and if an enemy champ dies, the duration is extended. Vi is a fighter. Her passive Denting Blows. Every 3rd attack on the same enemy deals a percentage of max HP, reduces armor, and gains her attack speed. Vault Breaker charges forward, doing damage and knockback. Enemies hit get a stack of Denting Blows. Blast Shield, hitting with an attack or ability grants a stack of Blast Shield. Activating consumes a stack to generate a shield. At max stacks also grants movement speed. Excessive Force, the next attack gains bonus damage and also damages enemies behind the target. Her ultimate Assault and Battery dashes at a target doing damage and knockup. Enemies dash through take 75% damage. Wukong is a fighter tank. His passive Crushing Blows, attacks and abilities apply stacks, increase damage per stack on the target. Golden Staff passively gives his next attack increased range after using an ability. Activate to empower his next attack to do bonus damage and heal. Warrior Trickster, become invisible and dash in a direction, leaving behind a clone that attacks for reduced damage. Nimbus Strike dashes toward the target and sends out clones to attack additional targets, grants attack speed. His ultimate Cyclone, he spins, gaining movement speed and damaging and knocking up enemies. Xayah is a marksman slash mage. Her passive Clean Cuts, after using an ability, her next attack hits all targets along the path and leaves a feather. Double Dagger throws 2 daggers, doing damage and leaving feathers behind. Deadly Plumage increases attack speed and damage, grants movement speed if hitting a champ, also affects nearby allied Rakan. Blade Caller recalls dropped feathers, doing damage and rooting enemies hit by 3 or more feathers. Her ultimate Featherstorm leaps in the air, becoming untargetable, throws out a fan of daggers that leave feathers behind. Xin Zhao is a fighter slash tank. His passive Determination, every 3rd attack deals bonus damage and heals. 3 Talon Strike, next 3 attacks deal increased damage, the 3rd attack does a knockout. Wind becomes lightning, cleaves, then jabs with a spear, slowing hit enemies. Audacious Charge, charges to enemies, doing AoE damage and a slow. His ultimate Crescent Guard does AoE damage and knockback to all enemies except for the most recently hit by his attacks or abilities. Blocks all damage from enemies outside of the circle. Yasuo is a fighter slash assassin. His passive Way of the Wanderer, his crit chance is doubled, his crits do slightly less damage. Moving builds up a shield that is triggered on taking damage from a champ or monster. Steel Tempest thrusts his sword forward, grants a stack of Gathering Storm if it hits. At 2 stacks, it fires a whirlwind that does knock up. If activated during Sweeping Blade, will hit in a circle. Wind Wall creates a wind wall that blocks enemy projectiles. Sweeping Blade dashes through enemies, dealing damage. Each cast increases damage up to 50%, cannot be recast on the same enemy for 8 seconds. His ultimate Last Breath links to an airborne enemy champion, doing damage and keeping all airborne enemies in the air. For a short time afterwards, his crits gain increased armor pen. Zed is an assassin. His passive Contempt for the Weak. His attacks against low HP targets deal bonus damage every few seconds. Razor Shuriken, Zed and his shadow throw shurikens that do damage. Living Shadow passive, Zed gains energy whenever he and his shadow strike with the same ability. Activate, Zed's shadow dashes forward, remaining in place for a few seconds. Reactivating switches positions with Zed and the shadow. Shadow Slash, Zen and shadows slash nearby enemies. His ultimate Death Mark becomes untargetable and dashes to an enemy, marking them. After a few seconds, Mark triggers, repeating a portion of the damage dealt during the marked time. Leaves behind a shadow, reactivating to teleport back to the shadow. Ziggs is a mage. His passive Short Fuse. Periodically, his next basic attack does bonus magic damage. Cooldown of this effect is reduced on ability use. Bouncing Bomb throws a bouncing bomb that deals magic damage. Satchel Charge detonates after 4 seconds or reactivation, doing damage and knockback. Also knocks back Ziggs but does no damage. Explosive Minefield drops mines that do damage and slow. His ultimate Mega Inferno Bomb hurls a very long range, large bomb, central area doing more damage than the outer rim. And that's all of them, at least for now. Thanks for watching. I am Monkey O Chaos. I hope this was helpful to somebody out there. If you enjoyed this, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down there. Also, if you want to watch me struggle through ranked, I will be putting up videos of that, although I am solid iron tier at best. So if you're looking for pro plays, not here. If you're looking for trash plays, then I've got content for you. If you want to jump down in the comments, let me know who you're climbing ranked with. Maybe I'll give them a try, see if I can screw it up somehow. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the Rift.